He was brought to Japan as a slave but became the greatest legendary samurai. It is the year 1382, and Yasuke is an African man serving Oda Nobunaga, a powerful and visionary noble who dreams of ending 150 years of feudal conflict and uniting Japan. Oda's lifelong dream was to write the One Piece, to convert Japan from a fragmented country ruled by many nobles into a country ruled by one system. Right now, he is fighting the final war of his life against the evil daimyo, Hojo, another powerful noble who uses dark arts to strengthen his soldiers. The battlefield is hell on earth where soldiers kill each other brutally, but they are not the only ones participating in the war. There are huge mechas rampaging through the battlefield and wizards who enchant their allies' attacks to make them more devastating. While Oda's soldiers fight against Hojo's soldiers and giant mechas on equal grounds, they soon find an army approaching them that they cannot fight against. The Dark Army uses the power of an evil magician and absorbs the souls of the fallen soldiers to grow stronger. Oda's men still clash against the overwhelming enemy, but unfortunately, they are not able to stop it. Not far away from the battlefield, Oda is hiding in a temple, waiting for the enemy to come end his life. He is drunk himself, silly realizing that there is no chance to win or survive, and the only one besides him is Yasuke, the first and only black samurai of Japan. Yasuke tells Oda that the enemy will come here soon, and he should escape now. Oda refuses and tells Yasuke to drink with him, because this is the last time they will be seeing each other. Yasuke obeys his order, and once he drinks, he says that they can still fight, but Oda has had enough. He draws his sword and commits seppuku, and then commands the horrified Yasuke to end his suffering. Yasuke walks to Oda, and with a heavy heart, swings his blade down on him. 20 years after that day, Yasuke is now a boatman in a cozy village in Japan, far away from the war and conflict ravaging the country. The once esteemed samurai has now become a useless day-drinking bum, just like my father. Each night, he has the nightmare where he kills his master, and he spends his days rowing people down the river on his boat and catching fish on the side. In his spare time, he goes to the village bar to have a drink while listening to some soothing music, because Spotify and iTunes will not be invented for another 500 years. Suddenly, a masked boy attacks him from behind. Yasuke easily dodges his attack and tells the boy to stop pestering him, but he is adamant that he will land a hit on him one day and get him to accept him as a student. The bar owner scolds the boy for making a mess of his place, and as Yasuke leaves the bar, the boy named Ichiro follows him, still pestering him to teach him swordsmanship. He declares that he will become a warrior who will defeat evil daimyo, but Yasuke tells him to stop dreaming. After he leaves, Ichiro heads straight to his crush Saki's house. The permanently ill Saki wakes up from her bed on seeing him, and Ichiro takes off his mask to reveal that he is one handsome son of a bitch. She asks him if he managed to hit Yasuke, and Ichiro says that he failed yet again, but he will succeed one day. He then gives her his sword, saying that in a couple of years she can hold his other sword too. Saki thinks that she is not strong enough for that, but as she strains to hold the sword, a strange power awakens within her, and she starts glowing. The sword snaps because of that power, and while Saki apologizes to Ichiro, her mother Ichika, who sings at the bar, comes there. She finds that her daughter has a high fever, so she feeds her some magic snow powder, and on learning that she snapped Ichiro's sword in two, she realizes that something is wrong. She tells Saki that they need to see a special doctor who lives far away, and Ichiro says that she can ask Yasuke for help because he will take her there quickly. The next day, as Yasuke leaves the bar, Ichiro attacks him again, but fails miserably. Just then, Ichika comes running after him and tells him that her daughter is sick and needs to see a doctor who lives in another city to the north, and she wants him to take them there. Yasuke tells her to show the girl to the village doctor because a war is going on in the north, and they will all die if they go there. He begins walking away, but Ichiro steps in front of him and tries attacking him. Yasuke simply breaks his stick, and then Ichiro tells him that he will help Saki if he has any honor. Yasuke tells him that sacrificing one's life for nothing is not honorable, and walks away. However, that night, he begins recalling how his story started 25 years ago, when he was brought to Japan as a slave by a wealthy merchant. In the port town where he was coming down from the ship, he saw a samurai trying to pick a fight with a boy who told him that he had a bigger peepee than him. The samurai challenged the boy to a duel of honor, and no one stepped in to stop this unfair match except Yasuke. He told the man to put back his sword, and even when his owner tried to pull him back, Yasuke did not budge. The grumpy man decided to cut him down first, but Yasuke immediately got into his boxing stance. As the man attacked him, he easily dodged his attacks and then hit him with a solid combo before pinning him to the ground and almost stabbing him with his own swords. Oda, who was buying some exotic items from the merchant, was impressed by Yasuke's character and strength. However, as he looked at his dark complexion, this racist man told the owner that Yasuke was dirty and he needed to be washed. One of the servants tried cleaning Yasuke, and only then did he realize that this was his skin and not dirt. Oda was really curious because this was his first time seeing a man with black skin, and he asked for Yasuke's name. His original name had a couple of clicks and sounds that he could not even understand, but when the owner told him that he was from the Yao tribe, Oda decided to name him Yasuke and took him in as a servant. Thinking about how his life once changed because he helped a child, Yasuke decides to help the girl named Saki too. He goes to her house at around midnight and Ichika comes out brandishing a knife, thinking that they have an intruder. However, she is surprised to see Yasuke, who tells her that they should get going quickly because the patrols are lighter at night. They travel upstream, and when Yasuke takes a rest, he sees another dream of his past. After he became Oda's servant, he was given the chance to become a samurai and a lot of property. The people around him were curious about this man who was the color of a moonless night, and one day the boy whom he saved came there with his sister Natsu. She thanked him for saving her brother earlier, and Yasuke told her that where he comes from, it is the duty of the entire village to look after children. Natsu told him that she could not do the same because she is a samurai, and her code forbids her to interfere when someone's honor is challenged. But he was not bound by that code, and she was grateful for that. Yasuke wakes up as the dream ends and begins rowing the boat again. Ichika asks him about his true identity because she can tell that he is not a normal boatman. Yasuke tells her that he is a nobody, and then asks her about her unique necklace to change the topic. Ichika quickly hides it, thinking that he may snatch it, and then asks why he changed his mind about helping her daughter. Yasuke tells her that in his community, the entire village is responsible for looking after the children. Saki suddenly starts coughing, and Yasuke asks about her illness. Ichika tells him that it is a special condition and refuses to tell him anything more. Suddenly, the boat comes to a standstill as the river freezes, and before Yasuke can understand what is happening, he finds that he is surrounded. There is a sickle-wielding baddie on one side and an 8-foot-tall mommy on the other side. A huge mecha also comes there to obstruct his path, and next to it is a black shaman. The mecha taunts the shaman, saying that they found his long-lost brother, but he tells the tin box to shut up. The 8-foot mommy tells Yasuke to hand the girl over, but he refuses and immediately attacks the shaman with his pitchfork. The enemies scatter, and the mecha starts blasting ice beams at Yasuke, who dodges them all and then pulls his hand down to trap it in ice. The sickle wielder attacks him next, followed by the shaman who summons a spirit to fight him, but Yasuke manages to overwhelm them. The tall mommy suddenly turns into a bear and attacks him from behind, but Ichika comes to cover his ass and kicks her away. She is quite skilled in combat as well, but gets caught off guard when the mecha shoots her from a distance. She almost loses her hand from that attack and is sent rolling on the ice towards Saki, who is horrified to see this. Everyone runs towards Saki, whose powers suddenly manifest, and she tells them to leave her mother alone. Her power pushes everyone back, and as Yasuke tries to hold on to Ichika, the only thing he can grab is her necklace before he is plunged deep under the water. Luckily, Yasuke manages to reach the shore of the river and climb out of the water with the necklace stuck by his side. As the necklace falls ahead of him, he tries to reach it but passes out because of exhaustion. He once again sees a dream of the past when he was beginning to prove himself as a capable soldier under Oda. One day, as he was watching the girl Natsu sparring with a veteran samurai named Mitsu, Oda came there to see the fight as well. Everyone kneeled before him, and then Oda declared that he was soon going to fight against an enemy general. He wanted to take Natsu and Yasuke along with him, but Mitsu told him that it was not a good idea because he was a misogynist and racist prick just like most other people of his time. He told Oda that their people don't trust the foreigner and a woman to be good enough for the battlefield, but Oda replied that he trusts them and that was enough. Mitsu was not satisfied, and for once he was willing to accept Natsu as a capable samurai but not Yasuke. Oda told him that he would usher Japan into a new age where there would be no place for discrimination on any basis, and he should start changing his ways if he wants to thrive in that world. He left with that, and all of his other servants followed. Mitsu gave Yasuke a stink eye before leaving, and he remarked that the old man seems to hate him. Natsu told him not to think too much about it because she was sure that Mitsu was just jealous because Oda showed a lot of faith in Yasuke. Suddenly, her pendant began gleaming in the sunlight, and she told him that it was her family crest that had been passed down to the women of her family. Coincidentally, it is the same as Ichika's necklace. He wakes up from his sleep with that and soon finds Saki, who runs to him and asks where her mother is. Yasuke tells her that he doesn't know because he lost her during the fray. As he roasts some fish at night, he asks Saki if she remembers what happened after they were attacked. She doesn't remember anything and says that she felt helpless and just wanted the fighting to stop. Yasuke then asks her if her mother ever told her about her origins. She denies that, and he then begins looking at the necklace that brings back more memories of the past. As per Oda's orders, Mitsu led 7 samurais to their enemy, telling them that this was their chance to surrender before they faced their full might. However, when the enemy saw Natsu and Yasuke among the samurais, they refused to count them and said that there are only 5 samurais. They were orthodox stuck-ups who refused to accept that a woman and a slave could be more than that, and they told Mitsu to send the black samurai over so that they could show that he is not worth bearing the title. Mitsu was pleased with that because he wanted something like that too. So he went back to the group and told Yasuke that the enemy leader has challenged him to a duel to decide the fate of this battle. He told him that this is an old cultural practice of their enemy and they must respect it. Yasuke didn't object and went to challenge the enemy general, telling him that there is still time to surrender. However, the general jumped down from his fortress and told them that he would never surrender to a man like Oda, who doesn't respect their culture. They began trading blows, and in the end, Yasuke shattered the general's sword and told him to surrender. Suddenly, the gates opened and some soldiers surrounded Yasuke. Natsu wanted to help him, but Mitsu stopped her, saying that things should be settled in the old-fashioned way. However, contrary to what he hoped, Yasuke easily defeated all the soldiers and then killed their general too. He then prayed for their souls, and surprisingly, the general had a talisman with Natsu's family crest drawn on it. Back to the present, Yasuke takes Saki back to the village, and Saki asks him why he returned here. She says that they should go to the doctor, but only her mom knew his address or name. She says that they should find her mom first, but Yasuke is sure that she is dead at the bottom of the river. Saki breaks into tears and runs away from the bar, but as she falls to her knees because of her overwhelming emotions, her power begins to leak even more intensely. On the other hand, Yasuke keeps downing one drink after the other, recalling the victory party after he had slayed the enemy general. While everyone was celebrating, he was alone in a corner, mourning the fact that he had to take lives. Natsu came to accompany him and began talking about how they believe that Oda's mission to unify Japan is noble, but their methods are not. Their recent victory led to the pointless death of many innocent people, and she asked Yasuke to think again about the path they are on. Just then, Oda came there, gave a toast to their victory, and then called Yasuke his son, telling everyone to drink in his honor. This made a lot of people jealous, including Mitsu, who felt that servants like them should always remain servants in the eyes of their master. Just as Yasuke comes back to his senses from the flashback, he finds that the enemies he faced earlier have infiltrated the bar. An old priest who is their employer comes there as well, and he introduces himself as a servant of the Catholic Church who is here on a mission. He says that according to a prophecy, a special child born in Japan will help him bring peace and control to Europe, and that child is Saki. He says that long ago he entrusted Saki to Ichika so that she could safeguard her, but she ran away with her instead. Now that she has been disposed of, he wants the girl back so that he can go home. He asks Yasuke about his location, but he refuses to tell him anything. The priest tells his hired mercenaries to capture him alive and leaves the bar while the mecha is still trying to come inside. The shaman decides to pay back Yasuke for breaking his nose earlier and throws a bottle at him before charging ahead with a knife. The mecha stops him because they need him alive and then flings him to the first floor. There, the bear mommy attacks him, and as Yasuke somehow evades her, he has to deal with the shaman and the chick with the scythe. He tries to distract her by throwing some alcohol bottles at her, and as some of the liquid splashes on the mecha's body and fries its circuits, it begins shooting indiscriminately, targeting its own allies. The bear mommy reboots it and then finds that Yasuke is unconscious. He quickly regains his senses and tries to flee, but the enemy team has nice teamwork, and they manage to beat him half to death and toss him to the priest's location, who stomps on his face, saying that he will soon get salvation. The priest and his mercenaries drag Yasuke through the village, and everyone follows them out of curiosity. Once enough villagers have gathered, the priest tells them that Yasuke killed the singer named Ichika. The villagers are divided into two parts about whether they should believe the shady-looking priest or not, and then Ichiro stands up for Yasuke, saying that he would never do such a thing. The priest suddenly takes out Ichika's necklace from his pocket, saying that he found this on Yasuke. All the villagers identify that as Ichika's necklace, and the priest says that Yasuke took it after killing her. The entire village suddenly turns against him and starts throwing stones at him, while the priest says that Ichika's daughter is still alive and scared, so they should find her and hand her over to him so that he can raise her well. After that, the priest takes Yasuke to an abandoned church to torture the information out of him. He calls the mercenaries incompetent fools and monsters who couldn't find a single girl. The mecha grows furious and points his gun at him, but the bear mommy stops it and says that she will find the girl with her sharp senses. She takes the mecha with her, and once they are gone, the priest wakes Yasuke up and once again asks him about Saki's location, but he refuses to tell him anything. The priest decides to use his favorite method of torture on him and takes out two brass knuckles, telling Yasuke to savor the fists of God. He hits him with the knuckles, but Yasuke mocks him, saying that his god's fists are weaker than an old woman with arthritis. On the other hand, Saki is hiding in the village, but the beast woman finds her trail. She keeps looking for her, but then suddenly, Saki's powers activate, and she sends all the fruits from the shop she is hiding at flying towards the mercenaries. She seems to be in better control of her abilities now and flies to the top of a rooftop. The mecha follows her with the bear woman on his back, and Saki tells them to stay away from her because they are monsters who killed her mother. She runs away from them, and the mecha shoots her with an ice cannon. Saki dodges his attacks and then climbs on a rope, using her power to glide to safety. However, as the mecha attacks her again, she loses her balance and almost falls to the ground. She hangs onto the roof roof, but as the mecha comes to get her, she sees some fishermen carrying their hauls and jumps into one of their carriages. The fishermen go their separate ways, and the bear woman can't trace Saki any longer because her smell has been masked by the smell of the fish. Saki waits for the fisherman to reach the forest before she jumps out of his carriage and then begins walking ahead mindlessly. Suddenly, she finds someone coming and hides behind a tree to ambush them. However, it was Ichiro whom she just punched, and he had teamed up with other boys to find her. Ichiro tells her that the old priest told them that Yasuke killed her mom, and she told them that it is a lie. She says that Yasuke was one who protected them, but that suddenly makes her remember that it was her power that killed her mom. She suddenly starts undergoing a mental breakdown, and as Ichiro tries to check on her, her power activates, pushing him away. Everyone else is afraid of her now, and not knowing what to do, Saki keeps walking till she passes out. On the other hand, the old priest has been pummeling Yasuke for half an hour, but he laughs at him, saying that he should probably stop before he injures his wrists. The old man starts hitting him again, and like every second thing in his life, also sends Yasuke on a trip down memory lane. He remembers sparring with Natsu for an important war, and when he pinned her to the ground, she felt the need to bear his child. However, Yasuke had no time or energy to waste on her when they were going to ride to war the next morning. That night, as he was about to sleep, he saw Natsu sneaking out of their camp, so he followed her, and to his surprise, he found her meeting with an enemy leader. As it comes back to the present, the priest decides to torture him using another technique. He throws away the knuckles and then grips Yasuke's head with his bare hands. Suddenly, his fingers turn into tentacles and dig into Yasuke's face before discharging a powerful electric current into his body. The priest tells him to reveal Saki's location before he is burned alive. However, after Yasuke refuses to say anything despite being tortured for long, the shaman pulls the priest away. He tells the old man to stop wasting their time because it seems that Yasuke really knows nothing and they should just deal away with him. Yasuke doesn't even listen to them because all he can think of is Natsu. He remembers the war where he rode alongside Oda and Natsu to face the armies of the legendary ninja Hattori Hanjo. Hattori's army tried ambushing them at a pass, but Yasuke had already alerted Oda after seeing Natsu meeting with the enemy. Thanks to that, Oda's army pulled an Uno reverse on the enemy, ambushing them instead. As they kept fighting, Yasuke lost his sword after it got stuck in an enemy's body. Natsu saved him from another attacker, and then he confronted her about her betrayal. He told her that he saw her family crest with the enemy general he defeated in the past and asked her what was all about. Natsu told him that she never betrayed Oda because she was never loyal to him. Yasuke was disappointed, thinking that their closeness with each other was just a part of her act as well. He turned around and then Natsu suddenly attacked him. Yasuke threw her on the ground and then stabbed her with her own sword, only realizing what he had done after sealing her fate. With her dying breath, Natsu told him that not everything that happened between them was an act. Back to the present, the unconscious Saki is found by the Beast Woman and the mecha, but before they can take her, she wakes up and restrains them with her power. She tells them to lead her to the priest, and she reaches his hideout just as the shaman is about to cut Yasuke a ticket to the afterlife. As she breaks through the door with her power, the priest is happy that the mercenaries brought the girl to him, but he doesn't know that it is the other way around. Saki uses her power to control the mecha's cannon to freeze the shaman and the scythe user in their place. The priest attacks her with a thunderbolt, but Saki resists it and counters his power, leading to a bright explosion. The priest is really impressed by her abilities and tells her to come with him because he can teach her how to use her powers to their full potential. Saki refuses and throws some benches at him, but the priest transforms his tentacles into giant arms to stop them. Saki can't maintain her power for long, and the priest grabs her before Pikachuing the crap out of her. The priest turns into a complete monster as he continues to torment the girl, saying that he will make her obey him. Her screams open Yasuke's eyes, and he breaks through the chains to protect her. He tries strangling the priest with the chains, but he turns into more of a monster at this and hits him away. However, that gives Saki the chance to use her powers again, and she throws the church cross at him, piercing his body and killing him. As the priest dies, Saki crawls to Ichiro's side and leans against him, while the mercenaries decide to take the priest's purse because he still had to pay them for their work. Saki and Yasuke are none of their concern now, and they just let them walk free. However, Saki defeating the priest has more dangerous consequences than she could imagine. The waves of her power were sensed by the evil daimyo Hojo, who realizes that Saki is nature's way to balance her evil powers. However, she believes that if she can consume her power, she will become unstoppable, and then she will no longer need to be tied to her shrine. She commands her loyal bodyguard Kuro to find the girl and bring her here and to make sure that she doesn't fail. Hojo saturates her with dark magic. Back in Yasuke's place, he suddenly wakes up with Saki standing on top of him wearing his helmet. He freaks out on seeing her, but that freaks out the girl in return, and she throws a bucket of cold water on him. Once Yasuke is fully back to his senses, he sees his old stuff scattered around the room. Saki nervously apologizes to him because she was so bored since he slept all day and she decided to look into his stuff. Yasuke doesn't mind that, and he thanks her for saving his life earlier and says that he owes her the greatest debt. He then asks about her illness, but Saki dodges the question and begins inquiring about his stuff instead. She then finds a sealed bottle, but Yasuke tells her to not touch it. He then tells her that this village is not safe for her as everyone has seen her use her powers and she should move away. Saki says that she is going to the doctor first, but Yasuke refuses to take her there. He explains that the daimyo must have felt her power by now, and she will surely send her troops to capture her. That angers Saki, and her powers go out of control. She tells Yasuke that he promised her mother that he will take her to the doctor, and he also owes her the greatest debt. She begins throwing things at him, and as Yasuke tries to protect himself, Saki says that he will take her to Dr. Mori. Yasuke stops as he hears that name, but at the same time, Saki hits the back of his head with a bucket. Later, as they are having breakfast, Yasuke tells Saki that Mori is not a doctor but a warrior with powers like hers. He explains that the man was a warrior in Oda's army, and he earned the nickname Doctor because of his surgeon-like precision. Saki asks him how a boatman like him knows about a skilled warrior, and more importantly, how did her mother know about her? Yasuke says that it is a secret, and then Saki suddenly asks him if he thinks that Ichika was even her real mother. He doesn't have the answer to that, but he believes that she wanted to do the right thing for her. And so he agrees to take Saki to Mori, but not through the boat because that would be too dangerous. After that, Yasuke gives himself a fresh fade to start the journey. Before leaving his house, he shatters the huge bottle and takes the sword that once belonged to Natsu with him. They walk through the forest, and Saki keeps tripping on branches after every couple of steps. She complains, saying that they should just take the road, but just then, they see some soldiers of the daimyo looking for her. Yasuke decides to go even deeper into the forest, and after traveling for days, they see a village. Saki thinks this is where the doctor lives, but Yasuke tells her that it is still far away. Suddenly, they hear screams coming from the village and go closer to find that some mercenaries are searching for them. They are interrogating the villagers and threatening to kill them if they don't tell them about Yasuke and Saki, whom they have not seen. Saki asks Yasuke to do something because innocent bystanders are going to be killed because of them, and he is forced to protect an old lady from being killed by the leader of mercenaries. The mercenaries surround him, saying that the girl must be nearby since he is here, but they are no match for Yasuke's skill or strength. Their leader takes the old woman hostage and tells Yasuke to drop his weapon, but he just throws it at him, killing him in an instant. As he is taking back his sword, he suddenly hears a laugh and turns around to see Kuro, who thanks him for killing the mercenaries because now she doesn't have to pay them. Yasuke points his sword at her, telling her to back away if she doesn't want to be killed, but Kuro tells him that it is not happening. She suddenly opens her mouth wide and brings out a demonic spear out of it while her arm fuses with it. She attacks Yasuke with the demonic spear, and he lures her away from the village while telling Saki to run. In the forest, Yasuke fights against Kuro, pushing her back and injuring her, but she gains a power surge because of losing HP and then turns her blood into a weapon too. Kuro pulls an axe out of her wound to fight him, and with her dark magic, she begins wearing down Yasuke's sword. She disarms him as he tries to get his sword. She attacks him with a dark blast. Yasuke falls to the ground after being hit, but as Kuro tries to finish him, he suddenly stabs her, taking her by surprise. However, stabbing her reminds him of the time he stabbed Natsu, and he hesitates to finish her off. Kuro summons a dagger to kill him, but it vanishes as she tries to stab Yasuke. Saki came there to back Yasuke up, and Kuro is impressed by her power. She takes the sword out of her stomach and then vanishes into the shadows, and Yasuke asks Saki why she is here when he told her to run. She just says that she is not an obedient child, and then Yasuke apologizes because he failed to protect her yet again. Saki tells him that she is strong enough to protect herself, and he asks her why did she want him to accompany her then. She says that she would be lonely otherwise, and together they can do a lot more than they can do on their own. Soon they reach the village where Mori lives, and everyone seems to be on edge about something. Yasuke and Saki go to a tea stall to find information. The shopkeeper can't tell them anything. However, some men who have been following them the entire time arrive there, and Yasuke can tell that they are with Mori. So he lets himself and Saki be blindfolded as they are taken to Mori's school, where he raises young warriors. Mori tells Yasuke that it has been a long time since he has seen the legendary black samurai, and Saki is surprised because she never thought he could be a samurai. Yasuke says that he is not, and then Mori asks him how he has been doing. He reveals that he joined Oda's son after his death to keep fighting, but he was defeated, captured, and enslaved. He somehow escaped and has been living low until this moment. Mori tells him that he has been gathering students to fight in the rebellion against Hojo when the right time comes in the future. He asks Yasuke if he is here to join them, but Yasuke refuses, saying that he is here only to deliver Saki her because she has powers that are beyond even Mori's. Mori decides to test her by sending some wooden planks towards her, but Saki easily stops them. Next, he sends a sword flying at her, but Saki disintegrates it and then combines the particles back into a sword. Mori is in awe of her power, and he falls to his knees, saying that he has been waiting for someone like this to lead them. Later, everyone gathers to assess their options because Mori's network has found that the daimyo has already sent his army after Saki. His supporters think that they need to run away, but he says that if they run, the village will be destroyed. Just then, a man comes running to the hall, telling them that the demon general Hojo has arrived outside the village with his army. Everyone goes to the watchtower to see the scene, and suddenly, Saki starts groaning in pain, and as Yasuke reaches out to check on her, her power automatically attacks everyone. Mori blocks her and then traps Saki in a barrier. He realizes that Hojo is trying to infiltrate her mind to break her quickly. Yasuke asks why she would want that, and Mori says that Hojo is so old that she was there when Adam and Eve were cast out from Eden. However, even someone as wicked and powerful as her cannot live forever, and she's probably hoping to absorb Saki's power to live a couple hundred years longer. Mori thinks that the Dark General is serving as the link between Saki and Hojo. It's trying to help the girl, but he can only assist her, and she has to win the battle herself. Yasuke decides to defeat the Dark General to break the link, but Mori thinks that he won't be able to win against the Dark General since he is enhanced by Hojo's black magic. Anyway, Yasuke leaves to command the army, while Mori ventures deep into the astral plane where he finds Saki struggling against the evil Hojo. Meanwhile, Yasuke gathers the rebel forces, telling them that they are fighting for the future of Japan. He then rides alone towards the enemy forces to challenge the Dark General to settle things in the old way by fighting a duel. The Dark General removes his mask to reveal that he is actually Mitsu, who changed parties after he lost faith in Oda. Now he has been corrupted to his core by Hojo's dark powers, and he says that he should not have shown Yasuke any mercy when they met on the battlefield in the past. Yasuke tells him that he still has time to join the right side and save Japan, but Mitsu refuses, saying that he is saving Japan and its culture by serving the daimyo. He says that Oda was a foolish man who endangered their culture by accepting a foreigner as a samurai, and you will correct all his mistakes today. Mitsu gets down from the horse and Yasuke attacks him without hesitation, but a dark magic barrier protects Mitsu. He dodges Yasuke's attacks and then punches him to the floor. Mitsu keeps fighting Yasuke without even drawing his sword, telling him that he is not suited for the old way. Yasuke says that he also believes the same, and that is why he lied about the duel earlier. While he was fighting Mitsu to buy time, his archers had flanked the dark forces on both sides, and at his command they rain arrows on them, taking down hundreds of them in one fell swoop. The Dark Army fights back, and then the rest of Yasuke's troops come running to join the battle. Mitsu is impressed by this, and he finally decides to draw his sword and face Yasuke. On the other hand, Mori finds Saki trapped in an energy barrier inside the astral plane. He tells her that she must keep fighting even if she feels like her body is getting ripped apart. Saki doesn't understand what he means, and as some tentacles begin to tie her feet, she grows panicky. Just then, Hojo arrives there in her astral form and tells Mori that she will take the girl's power. He stands in front of Saki and blocks Hojo's attacks, but she begins pulling Saki towards herself by magic, and he is forced to stop her while maintaining his defenses. Hojo keeps overwhelming him using her immense experience, and he decides to talk telepathically to Saki. He tells her that he is not strong enough to beat Hojo, but she is. Saki is scared and clueless, but Mori asks her to have faith in herself. He tells her that the astral realm is connected to all living things, and she can sense them and use her powers to influence them. He asks her to calm her mind and focus, so Saki does exactly that. She suddenly finds herself in the battlefield in an astral form. The time around her seems to be frozen, but she can interfere with living beings and change their energy. She decides to use her power to remove the dark energy from Mitsu and then vanishes from the real world. Time starts moving as soon as she vanishes, and when Yasuke strikes Mitsu, a huge pillar of light erupts from the ground, pushing everyone away. With her connection to Mitsu severed, Hojo no longer has her grip over Saki. She frees herself and then attacks the old witch, forcing her to retreat. Saki returns to her senses with that, and seeing the battlefield, she wants to help her allies. Mori says that it is too risky for her to go there, and they can't do anything from here. However, Saki has an idea. On the battlefield, Mitsu finds that he no longer is buffed by Hojo's dark magic, and Yasuke's troops are overwhelming his own. He commands his dark mechas to blast through the mountain to open a way for their ultimate weapon, while he decides to fight Yasuke, confident that he doesn't need magic to beat him. While they clash swords, the mountain is destroyed, opening the path for giant mechas and thousands of dark soldiers to join the fight. Yasuke's side is overwhelmed by the enemy reinforcements, but then reinforcements arrive on their side too. It is the Bear Mommy and her gang of mercenaries who wreak havoc on the battlefield, hunting down enemy soldiers and disabling the mechas. In the meantime, Yasuke manages to defeat Mitsu and stab him. Even in the end, Mitsu refuses to accept him as a samurai and says that he will always be a servant. Yasuke tells him that he serves no man and then slashes his dome off clean. Once that is done, he returns to the base where Saki eagerly runs to him to tell him about the astral plane. Mori thanks the shaman for his help, but he says that he is not here for help but for the money they were promised. Turns out Saki used the astral plane to hire them, and they came as soon as they could. Mori sighs and thinks that maybe they can work out some contract. Meanwhile, the Scythe Lady and the mecha are on the watch. The mecha says that his sensors indicate multiple enemies coming at them quickly, but there is nothing over at the horizon. Suddenly, the Scythe woman falls to the ground with an arrow sticking to her head. As the mecha is confused about why his system scans her as dead, thousands of arrows rain upon the base. Everyone somehow protects themselves, and then they see that the daimyo's entire army is at their doorsteps. Mori orders the gate to be closed and tells everyone to rush inside, but the mecha's whole motherboard has been turned upside down on witnessing his friend's death. He immediately flies towards the Dark Army, activating self-destruct mode. He hits them right as the countdown reaches 0, greatly reducing their numbers. The shockwave from his explosion knocks Yasuke and his group off their feet, but they somehow manage to reach the main temple. The enemy forces have started infiltrating their base, and the bear mommy decides to stay back and stop them to the best of her abilities. She kills all the enemies in her way, but when she runs into some dark magicians, she dies a painful death. Meanwhile, all the villagers have gathered inside the temple, and Mori leads Yasuke to a secret passage that will lead him very close to Hojo's residence. He wants him and Saki to defeat the old witch because as long as she lives, the Dark Army will rise up no matter how many times it is defeated. Yasuke asks Saki if she is willing to come down on this risky road, and she agrees. The shaman wants to come with him too, but Mori triples his reward if he stays back to protect the women and children here, so he changes his plans. Yasuke and Saki go through the secret tunnel that brings them out at the base of the mountain where Hojo's castle is. The enormous Dark Army is passing right in front of them, and a powerful aura is always displayed on top of the castle. Yasuke tells Saki to stay hidden as he sneaks behind the army and tears the wires of a giant mecha. This allows Saki to control it easily, and she attacks the dark troops with it, causing them to fight each other. This buys Yasuke and Saki time to get near the castle, and they fight against the enemy soldiers on the way to reach the narrow bridge leading to the castle. A giant mecha stands there to stop them while the soldiers are hot on their pursuit. Saki uses her power to throw the mecha at the soldiers, breaking the bridge in the process but ensuring that they reach the castle safely. To their surprise, the castle is not guarded at all, but when Saki tries to sense Hojo, she finds that she is everywhere. The spider webs in the castle are all extensions of her body, and using them, she keeps a close eye on the movements of her guests. Once they reach a room, Yasuke shuts Saki in a closet while he begins looking for an enemy he senses nearby. However, he cannot sense Hojo as she appears behind him and corrupts his mind with her magic. She vanishes with that, and after Saki comes out of the closet, Yasuke suddenly sees some enemies and attacks them. However, it is all just an illusion, and Saki wonders why he is swinging his blade around for no reason. Suddenly, Yasuke sees Oda's ghost, who tells him that he is here to help him win against their greatest enemy. Yasuke follows him to Hojo's room, but Saki doesn't have enough energy to keep up with him. Yasuke is also exhausted by the time he reaches the top room, where he sees Oda's body tied up, but it is in fact Hojo pretending to be Oda. She tells him that the only way he can free his master is by killing the evil Hojo, and when Saki comes there, she makes her look like herself in Yasuke's eyes. Yasuke immediately charges at her to kill her, and the clueless Saki can only scream and use a barrier to protect herself. Yasuke overwhelms with her reckless attacks, while Hojo decides to break Saki mentally, saying that he has also abandoned her like everyone else. Slowly, the dark power of Hojo begins seeping into Saki's body, telling her that she must kill the samurai if she wants to live. Saki refuses to do so and shatters Hojo's control over her. Yasuke gets up to strike her, but he stops at the last moment because his PTSD resurfaces and he sees Natsu's face in Saki. It thinks that this is an illusion, but Natsu tells him that it is not an illusion but his memories guiding him to do the right thing. Thanks to that, Yasuke returns to his senses, and as Hojo pretends to be Oda and tells him to kill Saki, he strikes her instead. However, she blocks the attacks with her webs before revealing her true form. She decides to stop using tricks to win and vanishes. As Yasuke goes to check on Saki, the lights of the castle suddenly go out, and then pink threads surround them, trapping them in Hojo's domain expansion. She comes to fight them in her giant form and sends magic centipedes to attack Yasuke and pin him to the wall. She then attacks Saki and overwhelms her, but Yasuke manages to free himself and save her. He realizes that neither of them is strong enough to beat Hojo, but if they combine their power, they can win. Hojo sends her centipedes to attack them again, but Saki buffs Yasuke with her power and he easily slashes them away. Hojo shoots a dark beam at him, but Yasuke cuts through it and engages her in close combat, overpowering her. However, she launches a powerful attack that slams Saki against the wall, breaking her control over her powers. Hojo grabs the girl, but as she attacks her, Yasuke shields her with his body. He can't last long against Hojo's dark powers, and her tentacles make him a member of the Donut Club before wrapping around Saki and absorbing her power. However, just as she thinks she has absorbed all of it, Saki surprises her by breaking through the cocoon and emerging with huge butterfly wings. Hojo is too stunned to do anything as Saki goes to hug her and then uses her power to completely obliterate her. Once Hojo is just a weak, powerless shell, Saki goes to Yasuke to tell him they won, but as she sees him lying dead, she is devastated. She begins crying, but then suddenly, a mysterious power inside her necklace heals Yasuke's injury and brings him back to life. He is shocked by that, but then realizes that he left the fight incomplete. Saki tells him that she defeated the old witch, and now her body feels really better. Hojo tells her that she won't stay satisfied with her current situation for long, and soon she will want more and more power. Saki says that she won't turn like her because she has friends. Yasuke picks up his sword, and Hojo asks him to end her suffering. However, he just sheathes his sword, saying that she should keep suffering like the countless people who suffer because of her. Meanwhile, Mori and his disciples use a defensive formation to create a barrier around the temple that resists all enemy attacks. The Shaven doesn't think that defense is their best answer, and when the dark magic of Hojo fuses all of her soldiers and mechas into a giant abomination, he decides to show Mori how to use their abilities to fight. He does some Naruto signs and hijacks the barrier created by others to turn it into a giant spirit warrior to fight against the monster. He wrestles with it for a long time, but the monster is too strong for him and beheads the spirit warrior. It then begins marching towards the temple, and Mori goes to the shaman, offering his hand to help him get up. The shaman realizes that he might not survive this fight, and Mori knows this too. However, they are determined to go out proudly. Luckily, Saki manages to destroy Hojo at the right time, destroying the monster. Soon, Yasuke and Saki return to the village, and everyone celebrates their victory. The shaman gets paid handsomely, and for better or for worse, there is no one to share his payment with. After a while, Yasuke and Saki return to the village where everything started because it is her home after all. They find the village empty at first, but the villagers come out as they realize that it is Yasuke and Saki and not the daimyo's men. Everyone has heard about Saki beating the evil daimyo, so they treat her as a hero, and finally, Ichiro comes there limping, telling her that he is still a little sulky that she left without saying goodbye. Saki rushes to hug him, and then Ichiro's dad apologizes to her for misunderstanding her and asks her to stay with him since she has no place to stay. Saki is happy to hear that too, and then Ichiro asks Yasuke if he is going to stay with him too. Yasuke says that this place was not really his home, but at least he can stay with them as long as Ichiro's training is not complete. Saki then decides to give her mom's necklace to Yasuke, thinking that she would have wanted him to keep it.